Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if your main food group right now is cold coffee and you're surviving on what, 2 hours of broken sleep, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to unpack a really simple, tear-free baby sleep routine that's designed to help your little one and you finally reclaim your nights. I mean, let's be real here. Are you just completely exhausted from waking up multiple times every single night? You've probably literally tried it all, right? The rocking, the extra feeding, the singing, pacing the hallways at 3 a.m. like a zombie, and yet your baby still just won't sleep. It is incredibly frustrating, and honestly, it's physically draining for everyone involved. Okay, first things first, I need you to take a deep breath. Because the really good news is that sleep struggles, they're almost never caused by bad habits or bad parenting. You see, infant brains are rapidly developing, and their circadian rhythms are just all over the place. So rather than this being some sort of failure on your part, bedtime battles usually just stem from a simple lack of predictability in the baby's environment. And that is a very, very solvable problem. So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll talk about why the sleep struggle is real. Then, the power of predictability. After that, we'll get into the actual 5-step sleep routine, followed by common mistakes to avoid, and finally, why consistency beats perfection. Let's jump right in. Starting right off with Section 1, the sleep struggle, and just validating your exhaustion. Moving right along to Section 2, the power of predictability, and why babies absolutely need a routine. Because the world is just so huge and totally new to them, a predictable sequence of events is really their anchor. Predictability acts as this gentle, biological signal to your baby's brain that it's actually safe to rest. By doing the exact same calming, repetitive activities before sleep every single day, you're actively reducing overstimulation. You're lowering their stress levels and literally physically preparing their neurological pathways for sleep. It's kind of like flipping a really subtle power down switch in their minds. All right, let's get into the good stuff in Section 3, the 5-step sleep routine, which is basically your step-by-step toolkit. Here's the high-level view of our entire 5-step routine. It's a highly modular, totally achievable sequence that you can literally start using tonight. Notice how it flows beautifully from observation, watching their wake windows, straight down through creating a calm space, doing the bath and feed, having a quiet moment, and finally the very specific way you place them in the crib. Let's break each of these down. So step 1 is all about timing. And the massive mistake you really want to avoid here is waiting until your baby is overtired. Now, you'd think an exhausted baby would crash harder, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Biologically, an overtired baby produces a huge spike in cortisol and adrenaline just to stay awake. And that makes it incredibly hard for them to finally settle down. To beat that dreaded stress hormone spike, you've got to catch them before they hit a wall. You do this by watching closely for these specific sleepy cues. Are they vigorously rubbing their eyes? Are they giving you these big, exaggerated yawns, staring off into space, or just getting unusually fussy? The absolute second you see these cues, start the routine. Seriously, don't wait. Moving on to step 2, we apply what we call the 30-minute rule to physically signal that the day is ending. You can't just expect a baby to go from 60 miles an hour playing with noisy, flashy toys directly into deep sleep. They need a bridge to help them transition from that super energetic pace of the day down to rest. To build that bridge, you need to physically alter their space about half an hour before bed. Go ahead and dim the overhead lights, turn off all bright screens. We're talking TVs, phones, tablets, the whole shebang. Lower the overall noise levels, maybe turn off the music, and make sure any remaining play is incredibly calm and quiet. Then for step 3, we introduce the tactile part of the routine. Doing these specific activities in the exact same sequence each night helps your baby feel incredibly safe and secure. It usually goes like this: a warm bath to relax those tiny muscles, followed by comfortable pajamas to signal sleepwear, a nice feeding session to ensure they aren't going to wake up hungry, and of course, gentle cuddles for that essential physical connection. The sequence itself is your secret weapon here. Now, step 4 is all about quiet bonding. You really only need to spend 5 to 10 minutes using your calming, familiar voice to read a short book or sing a gentle lullaby. To a baby, your voice is hands down the most comforting sound in the entire world. So this isn't just about sleep. This is quiet, super focused bonding time that very quickly becomes one of your baby's absolute favorite parts of the day. And finally, step 5. This is the climax of our routine. And honestly, it's usually the hardest part. The transition. Because look,
If you wait until they are totally out cold in your arms, they're probably going to panic when they wake up alone later in a dark crib. But if you shift to placing them down drowsy but still awake, they slowly learn the skill of drifting off all on their own. It definitely takes some practice and patience, but it is a total game changer.
Let's pivot slightly to Section 4, common mistakes to avoid, or the pitfalls on the path to sleep. Look, when you're desperate for rest, it is so incredibly easy to fall into a few common traps. First off, don't change the routine every single night just because it didn't work perfectly the first time around. Avoid that late night overstimulation. Also, please ditch the myth that keeping your baby awake longer will magically make them sleep longer. Remember that cortisol spike we talked about? And finally, just stop comparing your baby's sleep to your friend's baby. Every single child develops on their own unique timeline. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, consistency over perfection and your long-term game plan. If you take away just one thing today, remember this rule above all else. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is consistency. If your baby isn't sleeping perfectly after just 2 days of trying this, do not panic. Be incredibly patient with yourself and with your baby, because small, gentle changes repeated every single day will naturally compound into big, lasting improvements. To wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. Sleep isn't just a switch you flip. It's an actively learned skill, much like walking or talking. So, what is the biggest hurdle your baby is facing as they learn this skill right now? Is it those frequent night wakings, fighting the crib, or maybe just really short naps? Drop down into the comments and let me know, because I would absolutely love to help you out. Hang in there, trust the routine, and remember, this phase won't last forever.